Welcome to the Grand Tour Series 3 Episode 9 Review. Aston's Astronauts and Angelina's Children. This episode review contains spoilers for the latest episode of the Grand Tour, so if you have not yet watched it, please go and do so now. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hello and welcome to this week's review of the Grand Tour. This week saw what I would call 3 solo films. Although technically it's 1 solo film and then 2 non-solo films. This week saw Richard Hammond test out the brand new Aston Martin V10 Vantage, of which I will have more details on later on in this review. James May went to the States to look at space and Neil Armstrong's legacy, and to test out some American style cars, including his very own personal Corvette, which is very interesting. I do like when James May goes off and does these historic type films. And then we had Jeremy Clarkson in the brand new Citroën C3 Actros performing suitability tests to see if it could pull a boat, fit some children in it, and to catch some robbers from stealing a bank. This episode was very mediocre at best. Certainly didn't top last week's episode when the Grand Tour went to the States for that special. That'll be an episode that I come back to nearly all the time, because I think apart from the Namibia special and the Mozambique special, I think this is the special to top all specials, to be honest. Very well done, very well thought out, and very funny. However, going from such a strong episode last week to a mediocre episode this week, it turned me off a little bit, if I'm honest. But let's not dwell on the negative here and try and bring out some positives. So, the bits I did like about this episode is I did like James May's take on the rockets and Neil Armstrong's Corvette, of which I will leave above. I also liked the fact that Richard Hammond was driving the new Aston Martin Vantage, of which from 2020 Aston Martin will be going all electric, with the recently announced news that Daniel Craig in the next James Bond movie will be taking an all electric Aston Martin with him, which means it is goodbye to the V12 Aston Martins that we saw in Spectre, Skyfall, Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace. But unfortunately, let's not dwell on that. Now, there are a few bits about this film that I liked, and a few bits about the film that I didn't like. I like the car itself. I like what they've done with it. However, I don't like the lights and I don't like the colour. For me, the Aston Martin V10 looks like it's gotten parts taken from other cars of the same brand or different brands and been slapped on the back as if nobody would notice. Now, going by previous Aston Martins, this one isn't exactly one that I would go and buy. Simply because of the design aspect, the lights, and how comfortable it is. Comfort is fine. Styling, I'm not so sure about, and I definitely pick a different colour. But overall the film was fantastic and I did like it. Moving on to James May's astronaut film. This film looks at the legacy of Neil Armstrong, and very touching tribute to NASA and Neil Armstrong's personal kind of touches and what made him a person, what made him a likeable person and all that. I did like the fact that when James May was doing the review on Neil Armstrong's actual Corvette in the film, that the designer who designed it picked it up and basically left it how it was, with a few minor changes. I think he was saying he left the paintwork the way it was, the seats and the steering wheel and the dialing gauges, they were all the same apart from a few bits here and there. I think he was saying that he had to replace maybe bits of the seat upholstery, some part of the dashboard, and a little bit on the gear stick, but everything else was the same. Yeah, I did like that. Now, moving on to... how long have I got left on this? Moving on to the Peugeot film, or the Citroen film, it was just a bunch of pointless tests. I mean, if you're going to do proper tests, do them properly. I understand they were trying to go for humour based, but trying to get a Citroen C3 Actros to pull a boat, that's unrealistic. And it just didn't work for me. But it was entertaining and humorous all the same, so I'll give it points there. I'll be back this evening with my preview for episode 9, the youth vote. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you.